everybody, it is Carrie from McMillan Memorial Library in Wisconsin Rapids, and I am back with another rice around the world recipe. That's kind of hard to say. Tonight's recipe features Persian one-pot tomato rice, and I haven't tried this particular Persian recipe, but I am a huge fan of Persian food. So, Persian, what is it? Where is it? It's actually the country of Iran. So the two things can be used interchangeably, really. Rice has been a staple in the country of Iran since the end of the 16th century. So this has been around for a very long time. They've used rice. They use it almost daily. We do have our ingredients here ready, and I'm going to go through those for you really quickly. So tonight we're going to need about 2 cups of water. We're going to need a couple of medium potatoes, and we're going to dice those in a minute. We've got 2 cups of rice, and I have already rinsed my rice, rinsed and drained it. We've got a 14-ounce can of petite diced tomatoes. We've got 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I've got 1 chopped onion, finely chopped. I've got a teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and a half teaspoon of turmeric. The turmeric is interesting. It's got, if you have a look quick, it's got a very bright golden yellow color to it. And this spice is actually, it comes from a flowering plant, and it's actually the rhizomes of the plant, which are underground, that they use to grind up and make the turmeric powder. Turmeric the flavor is it's a warm flavor. It's a little bitter. It tastes a little black peppery. And if you smell it, it smells very earthy. It's part of the ginger family, and it is also, besides being used in recipes for eating and cooking, it is also used as a natural dye. Because of its bright yellow color, it will dye. I don't know if you can see, I've got some on my fingers from earlier. It will dye things pretty fast, and my cutting board has a little bit on it too. So it is used as a natural dye, which makes sense. When you see it in action, you will know. So we're going to get started. First, what I'm going to do is I am going to start my oil. So I'm going to get that hot, start heating up in our pot. I've got a rather large pot because we've got quite a bit to go into it. It is, after all, a 1-pot dish, so it's quite convenient. So I'm going to put this on a fairly low heat. I'm going to just add our oil and get that heated up while I dice the potato. So come back over. I just wanted to kind of show you the technique of dicing the potato. I keep wanting to say tomato. So I've got my potatoes already peeled, and I'm just going to, of course, carefully run your knife through it. And for this type of recipe, we're not going to cook the potatoes for a really long time, so I don't want them to be too big. So I'm going to cut them in about 1/2-inch pieces. Right, so we've got about a 1/2 inch of potato on both sides. And then I'm going to cut those into dice. So we're going to just slice them up a little bit. And you want to get the pieces as close to the same size as you can. So we have about 1/2-inch dice. We're just going to put that back into the water for the time being so that the potato does not turn brown. So we'll do this with the rest of the potatoes. I am ready to add our onion to our oil. The oil has been warming up in our pan. So we're just going to add the onion. That's exactly what you want to hear. You want to hear a nice sizzle on your onion. And we're going to cook this onion until it is kind of softened up a little bit, and it's a little bit of a golden color. So that is what we're looking for in our onion. Our onions have softened up, and they're starting to smell a bit sweeter and not quite as spicy as they were. These little guys made my eyes cry. So we're ready to add the next ingredients to our pot. And so we're going to add our half teaspoon of turmeric. Get my spoon in there and get the rest of that out of there. And we're going to add our 2 diced potatoes. And we're going to cook that for 5 minutes. As you can see, our potatoes are bright yellow now. Our potatoes and our onions. They've been cooking together with the turmeric for a few minutes now. So we are ready to add the remainder of our ingredients. So we're going to start with 2 cups of water. Just going to pour that in. And then we've got our can of tomatoes. It does call for crushed tomatoes, but you can't get 14-ounce cans of crushed tomatoes for some reason. So I opted to get the smaller diced tomatoes. I'm also going to add my teaspoon of salt. Half teaspoon of cayenne. And the cayenne is a little bit spicy. If you don't want to add that all in, you probably go a little less. I really like spicy food, so that is just fine with me. And we're going to add our rice in. And what we're going to do now is we're looking to bring this to a boil, a slight boil, and then we're going to reduce the heat, and we're going to let this simmer with no lid, which is not usual. Usually you cook rice with a lid on. We're going to let this simmer without a lid until the liquid is pretty much absorbed by the rice and the potatoes. And once that happens, as long as the rice is cooked all the way through, we will take it off the heat and let it steam for a few minutes. So we're going to bring this up to a boil and then set it down to a simmer. And I'm not sure how long this will take. There's no time in the instructions, in the directions. So it's basically just you need to keep your eye on it, and you don't really need to stir it, but just keep your eye on it and make sure that once the water is gone, you want to stop cooking it at that point. My rice has now been cooking for almost 15 minutes. The water is almost gone. I did try the rice just now, and it is still a little crunchy, so we want to make sure that it's cooked till it's al dente, a little softer than that. And the potatoes are pretty much done. They're just a little bit crunchier than I'd like. I'm going to add a half cup more water into my pan, and we're just going to kind of give that a little stir. And at this point, I am going to add a lid to help this steam. The steam should help soften those rice grains up. So we're going to add a lid. We're going to keep it where it is as far as temperature, and we're going to give it another few minutes and check it. All right, our rice has been cooking with the lid on after I added a half cup more water, and it does look like it is finished now. It should be nice and cooked. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the heat off, and we're going to put the lid back on, and we're going to not touch this for 10 minutes. The residual heat from the rice and the other things in the pan are going to help steam things, and it will just kind of open up those rice grains and make them really, kind of fall apart together. You know what I mean? Like, not fall apart together. They will break apart. So they're, individual pieces. But you just want to make sure you keep your lid on for at least 10 minutes, and that will help set those grains. So we're going to do that. Set my timer. 10 minutes. We'll check on it, and we should have a finished dish. It has been 10 minutes of steaming for our rice. So I'm going to take the lid off, and we're just going to kind of fluff it a little bit, and it should come apart nicely. And it looks really tasty, and it smells even better. You don't want your rice to be mushy, so you don't want to mush it around too much. Just kind of separate those grains a little bit. And everything Looks good. It's official. It's a finished dish. So we have got ourselves some Persian tomato rice, and I'm going to serve that with some chicken. I just cut up some chicken breast and mixed it with some of the same spices that we used in our rice. So I used some cayenne, some turmeric. I put a little smoked paprika in there, a little garlic, salt and pepper, and a little olive oil. I'm just going to cook that up and serve it with the rice. So I hope you enjoy your rice as much as we will.